but will be discussion among a number of issues we are looking at from a Christian perspective in terms of time. How do we manage time? Then we look at how do we manage resources? And finally, how do we manage the assignments or the tasks we are given to take care when we are here? So what I would say is that there are two methods of delivering. And the first method of delivering is the one we use in school for small children. We call it pedagogy. Pedagogy is when you introduce a concept from people from the beginning. You break it down in small doses to enable them understand. That method is used for teaching small children. Then for adults, like the one I'm having today, I'll use a method called andragogy. Andragogy is a method which incorporates what we call experience and exposure. These grown-ups have their own knowledge and their area of expertise to what is going to be taught to them. And when you apply andragogy, then learning is not supposed to be one way. Learning is supposed to be two-way. So you'll find it's supposed to be a discussion where people share experiences, where people share issues, they contribute. And therefore, the purpose or the work of facilitator is to create a conducive environment where people can be able to contribute and generate knowledge, such that by the end of the training, then would expect that everybody would have contributed and has gained. And therefore, from the word go, I would request, do not hesitate to lift your hand. I'll be able to recognize you. And you'll also be able to share and contribute, because you have said today, I would like to look at these concepts, not necessarily from the church perspective only. I will also look at it from the global perspective. I will also look at it from personal perspective and its applicability on a Christian life. And therefore, bearing that you guys, you also have exposure and experience on what you do, you're also professionals, I would request you that you also bring in your input so that by the end of the training, at least it will be a win-win situation. And therefore, without wasting time, Francis, allow me to test my mic. Allow me to test my mic.
While you are testing your mic, I can see somebody from PCEA Parish IT has raised the hand.
Yeah,
can you say something?
Yeah, that is visual. Daktari, kindly share your presentation. Okay. Just share again, yeah.
So Francis, confirm to me the sound is okay. Sound is okay.
The sound is okay. Is okay now. Your presentation sound is okay.
Okay, fine. So this is what I really want us to look at: stewardship of tasks. And this being the assignment which have been given today, I would like to break it into three according to the major theme: that faithful leaders manage time, they manage assignments, and they also manage resources with the diligence and accountability. And this one can be gotten from Colossians 3 and verse 23. And therefore, I would like to go straight to the first issue, time stewardship. And I'll start from,
are you sharing? Yes? Are you sharing the presentation?
Yes.
We cannot see the presentation, kindly.
Okay, wait. Okay.
Yes, and share then share again. Eh?
Yes, and share then share again. Okay. Okay. Let me first of all stop sharing. I don't know, maybe. Okay.
Okay. By the time. Yeah. By the time, Daktari, you are sharing, Joe, you have a minute to tell us. We are 110. Joe, you have a microphone. Joe, any announcement, Joe?
Sure. So I'll just share mine, Daktari, then you'll share back again, because I'm sharing a presentation just to explain that.
So I stop?
Yeah. Once I'm done, you'll share again, yeah?
Okay. There I'm done.
Okay, good. Mine is up. So karibu leaders to this particular session that we're having today. So we are having this poll that we are running. We want to know which congregation you are coming from. So it's important that you participate in this particular poll that is there. The poll is already open, and we have some members that have already polled. So we want you to indicate which congregation you are coming from. If you're a facilitator or in the planning team or the host team, the technical team, just indicate the last option. So how do you do this? You go to your phone. If you're using a phone to connect, there are 3 dots at the bottom, the options button. Click on that, it will open tools. Then from tool select, you'll be able to see the polls that are there. So right now, one poll is active. You'll see one active poll. And then that is a poll you're talking about, asking which congregation you are coming from. If you are using your laptop or desktop, the desktop version, then also at the bottom, there are 9 dots there, which are the options button. Click on that, then you'll see polls. Once you open poll, you go to that poll. Select which congregation you are coming from so that you can have that for record purpose as well. Dr. Peter, you can take over. I've stopped sharing.
Okay, I want to start sharing once again.
Perfect, you're on. You can see.
You can see my slides?
Yeah, your slides are visible here.
Is it moving? Can you see something? Hello? Can you see something? What can you see?
Yes, Doctor, there's an image of a lady who is smiling.
Okay. It is for testing the sound.
Yes. And the sound is also there.
I was using that one to test my sound. Is my sound loud and clear?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. So let me go ahead. So I was saying now, and I hope my slides are moving, Stewardship of Task, which is assignment which have been given today. And according to them, I've broken it into 3. So we have faith leaders manage time. They also manage assignments. They manage resources with diligence and accountability, according to Colossians 3 and 23. So I'll deal with each item, and at the end of each item, I'll have a few minutes to refresh and maybe get some input before we proceed to the next session. So now I want to look at what we call time stewardship. And they have something called the maze about time management. And I've said when we are looking these, allow me to look it from different perspectives, bearing that I'm coming from academia. I also look from the church perspective, global perspective, and even from corporate perspective. So time management is nothing but common sense. But you'll find when you're talking about time as common sense, actually it is not. And you'll find many a times some of the agri incidents we have found on the road could have been caused by somebody who was rushing because they did not keep time. And many times you have delayed and things have really gone wrong. So we do not expect time to be a common sense. We would expect it to be a habit in you. Others will give an argument, I do well in life, so I must be managing my time effectively. It is not necessarily true. You could be doing well in life. You could be very successful in other areas, but does not reflect that you're using your time well, because you would see now from a biblical perspective, time would be spent for purposive, for the purpose of the kingdom, or for the one who sent us here. Others will say that I don't know how to manage time, but I work better under pressure. And if you look at the photo which we have there, you can see we have so many people, and the lady has not been able to meet the assignment. And all of them are up in arms. And I'm looking at a situation where you're a leader, and you're not able to keep time, maybe for the assignment given in the church, and everybody is up in arms against you. You cannot be a very effective leader. Others say, no matter what I do, I won't have enough time. Time is never enough. We create time, we manage time, because each and every person have always 24 hours. So it is you to apportion and manage time. Sometimes you find people saying they don't even have time to go to church. They don't have time. Anytime we have some responsibilities in the church and we want a believer to take a responsibility, the biggest excuse people say, you know, I'm a very busy person. You know, I don't have time. But in the honest, for us to be very honest, is that we are not very busy. It's only that we do not want to take that task and we don't want responsibility. So the aspects of we don't have time have always not been there, because we always have time for anything which is necessary, but we don't have time for anything which is not necessary. So anybody given an assignment, and especially a church assignment, and gives an excuse that he doesn't have time, then know to him that assignment is not necessary. And therefore, it is better for us to take our responsibility and be able to be committed to the work of the ministry and to the work of whoever sent us here, so that we can also create time. Remember, he is the creator of time, and therefore we need to have time for him. I want us to listen to this, because this is the most excuses people give. I want us to listen to this, because this is the most excuses people give. So Francis, I hope you're not muted. So I just want to run briefly, then you confirm to me whether the sound is clear.
I notice there are many men, if they do not want to do God's will, they don't want to do their part, they stop.
Is it loud, Francis?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
You can hear. Okay, good. Okay, fine. So let's go.
They start giving us. I notice there are many men, if they do not want to do God's will, they don't want to do their part, they start giving excuses after excuses. Number one excuses is this: I don't have time. Have you heard of such excuse? I don't have time. Why are you not attending a small group? I don't have time. Why don't you come and worship on Sunday? I don't have time. Have you heard of that excuses? Kung ayaw gawin, maraming dahilan. The people are doing the same. What's the problem? We will not do it anymore. I was explaining to a group of leaders this week. I explained to them the myth of lack of time. It's a lousy excuse. And I will not allow you from now on to have that excuses. What do I mean? Exhibit A. I know of a president of a multinational company. For the longest time, we wanted to invite him to be part of a small group to study the Bible and be accountable. You know his excuse, which is, valid. I'm busy. I have meetings. I run a big organization. One day, during his regular physical checkup, the doctor said, I see something in your lungs. I think you have cancer. The moment he heard the word cancer, suddenly he has time. Time for what? Going see the doctor, physical checkup, Bible study, prayer time. Why? Let me tell you why. Facing death has an amazing power to alter your priorities. The myth of no time is a lie. If a father will not give enough time to his children, it's simply because for the father, the children are not that important. If you don't have time to worship God on a regular basis, that means you are not giving it priority. If you don't have time for Bible study, for prayer, it tells me one thing: it is not important. So do not ever deceive yourself to say you don't have time. You will make time for what is important, and you will not have time for what is not important.
Ladies and gentlemen, well said. And we know these are most of the excuses we face our day-to-day with our leaders and congregations, that they do not have time. But it has made us very clear that this is just a myth, that because we'll always have time for the most important things, but we may not have time for things which are not important. And therefore, I call upon each one of us, let us be responsible, and let us also realize that God created us with a purpose and he gave us time. And so let us use also time to serve God who created us. So this issue of lack of time, I don't have time, I'm committed, you are simply saying the assignment which you have been given is useless and you have other good things you can be able to do. And therefore, as a believer and as worshippers of our God, then we will be very bad if we do not have time for the one who created us. And a good example is given for a very senior president in a company, that he could not have time for prayers, he could not have time for Bible studies, but the moment he's diagnosed for cancer, he now has time for going to see the doctor, he has time to go for therapy, he has time for Bible study, and he also have time for prayers. So therefore, let us not be pushed by worldly things, that we do not have enough time for our Creator who actually created us and gave us responsibility and tasks to do. So the other thing, what is the truth about time management from the corporate and even from the church perspective as a leader? One, it increases our productivity. So when we plan, we are able to achieve a number of tasks without a lot of pressure. It also reduces stress. And because you keep time and most of your assignments are done in good time, it also improves your self-esteem. And not like a praise, maybe, for example, I'm supposed to come for a meeting and I'm rushing to the meeting when it's a bit late. And when I'm coming there, I'm supposed to make the presentation. I think there's somebody who needs to mute. So technical team, please take care of that. So by the time now I'm coming to present, I'm already I've messed up with my self-esteem. I'm sweating, I have no confidence, I'm disorganized. So my productivity automatically will go down. So when you keep time, you also help to achieve balance in life. That means you're able to balance your life in terms of your work, in terms of your family, in terms of prayer times, and the church and the time for the ministry. Also, those who manage time also increases what we call self-confidence. That means now, by the time today we are starting this meeting, I ensured I was here quarter to, so that I could be able to familiarize myself, build my confidence, expecting the people who are supposed to come. But I don't want to come rushing at the last minute. Maybe the screen is not working, disorganizes me, and at the end of the day, whoever will be looking upon to me like a leader would put a lot of question mark. It will also help you to reach your goals without a lot of struggle. But what is this time? Do we have people who have control over time? Maybe you can also listen to this. And there we go.
Time. Time waits for no one. Time stops for no one. Your excuses will not slow down time. Your indecisions will not delay time. Your complaining will not stall time. And your regrets will not turn back time. So, don't waste your time in anger, regrets, worries, and hate. Because time will not turn back and cry along with you. It's time to let go of the past and stop worrying about the future. Your only time is now. So make sure you spend your time with the right purpose, with the right deeds, with the right emotions, with the right thoughts, and with the right people. Time flies, that's a fact. But you can always spread your wings and soar with time and navigate life the best that you can. Remember, you will never pass this way again. Make it count. time. Do what it does. Keep moving.
And that is the spirit. Keep doing what time is doing. Keep moving. Spend your time with the right purpose, with the right emotions, and with the right people doing constructive work, because once time wasted, you'll also be able to recover it. And we are said, we are sent here with a purpose and with a mission. And also time is limited. So the limited time you have in this world, please ensure you leave a legacy and you leave an impact. And I didn't want to give a good example of somebody called Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was not a politician. Mother Teresa was not a president even. But many years she's gone, but she's remembered. But we ask ourselves, how did she spend her time? And we found throughout her life, she spent time with the needy and helping the needy with a lot of commitment and the purpose which actually touched millions and millions of the poor people. And I ask myself, apart from what we do to ourselves, do we know that we have an assignment that God sent us to come and do to the mankind? Because we always say a service to mankind is a service to God. How frequently do you spend your time with a purpose to serve and promote what we call the ministry? Now, for example, if we look at the disciples of Jesus, it goes to history to a number of them, that the ones they were commissioned by Jesus Christ to go and do what they were expected to do, they did it. To an extent, it is recorded, and nowadays we read some of the deeds they did. Therefore, today when you are gone, how will you account for your time God gave you in his ministry? You could have achieved so much in terms of worldly materials, but now for the kingdom. Remember, part of our time, we are supposed to devote it to the ministry. So how much did you do in the ministry? And I remember Paul complaining to the church of Christians, and he was telling them, for how long are you going to take milk? Can you grow up? And the reason is because they lacked what we call spiritual deeds. Spiritual deeds are those times you spend either preaching the gospel, reading the word, and also touching the rights of the other. And he complained so much about them. So I also want to throw a challenge to you. How much time do you spend for the ministry and doing the assignment and the task which our God gave you? So now, that was just a preamble of introduction of looking what time is, but I want us to look at time from a Christian perspective. And from the word go, and this is biblical, it said, time is a precious gift from God. And the only good thing with the precious gift of God, it is equally given to all. And therefore, faithful stewardship of time reflects faithfulness to God. That means if you manage your time properly, just as we say cleanness is second to godliness, even keeping time. And that is why the Bible says there's always time for everything, and there's a season for everything. And our God is a God of order. And therefore, as a leader and leading the people of God in terms of stewardship, you're supposed to set a good example. That when you have an assignment, you have a meeting, you be the first one to arrive and ensure you keep time so that others can also be able to emulate you. For example, today, I would say in a church setting, and I'm the one who is supposed to preach, and I'm late for about 10 minutes. And in that church, we have about 100 people. That means I've fully wasted 1,000 minutes for those people. This is really bad, because those people are looking upon you as a role model. They would expect you to see, and that means most of the programs of that day will be done hurriedly, and therefore the intended objective, what was supposed to be achieved, will never be achieved. So what is time stewardship? Time stewardship means responsibly managing and prioritizing time to serve God's purposes. I want to repeat that because we are looking at the issue of stewardship of time. It means responsibly managing and prioritizing time to serve God's purposes. And therefore, good stewardship requires a vision. With this vision, you require to plan. And from planning, you also need to be disciplined in terms of time so that you can be able to manage the assignment and be able to achieve the vision which you had. When I talk of a vision is something we want to achieve in future. And for us to be able to achieve that vision, from corporate perspective, we talk of laying down strategies. Strategies require time. And that is where we have timelines. We have what we call milestones, some of the indicators, whether we are actually moving towards the desired direction. And for you to be able to manage all that, you must be disciplined. And you'll find most of the timekeepers are highly disciplined because they know their success, their vision, and implementation of planning depends with the time. And therefore, once the time is gone, your vision will never be achieved, your planning is a waste, and no matter how disciplined you are, then time is a key element which ensures that all those ones are achieved. Now, importance of time in stewardship. Managing time in stewardship will impact your decision making. You realize that we are living in the world where things are changing so fast. Changing so fast because we have an external environment which keep on changing, and this external environment is also affecting the church. The church is not spared. For example, in terms of technology, we need to also to adapt, but we need to adapt this technology on good time. And therefore, you realize as we cast our vision of what the ministry wants to do, then we occasionally have to make a decision on timely basis. Otherwise, if you do not make a decision on timely basis, you realize that now the ministry effectiveness is affected. For example, you realize today we have youth in the church. It is the responsibility of the church to mold the youth to become future leaders. They understand what we call the timelines. When do we start these people? When do we take them to the next level? And when do we hand over to ensure that there is sustainability in terms of succession in our churches? Now, let me look from biblical perspective. And this one, I would like you to go and read these verses because I've just looked at a few things. I would like you to go and read these verses a bit deeper so that you can be able to understand exactly what I meant when I looked time from a biblical perspective. And we say God sets appointed times and purpose for everything. And I really want to repeat that God sets appointed times and purpose for everything. This one teaches us to live with awareness of his timings. That means we live with awareness of the timing because God has a purpose in our life, in every stage of our life. There are those things you're expected to do when you're young children, when you're a young adult, when you're grown up, and maybe when you're old. For example, and this one I'll really talk to men, the 4 P's of a man. I'll just talk about the 2 of them. The first one, or maybe I can talk about 3 or 4 of them, the 4 P's of a man. In biblical, as a man, there's a time you're supposed to be the provider for your family. And that is when they're young, they cannot be able to provide anything for themselves. And therefore, as a man, you're supposed to be a provider. Second thing, you're supposed to be protector. Those people are helpless without you. So you're supposed to protect them. So you need to know the time to protect them. And then you have a responsibility as a man to let those people know the godly way. So you're the priest of that home. Occasionally, we realize us as men have failed because anytime you realize we are asking our wives to be the people leading houses in terms when it comes to the priest. Mama, ombea chakula, mama, ombea wageni. It is the responsibility of men bestowed to us by God. That's why you are given dominion. And then the last one, the 4P, is that you're supposed to be the prophet. At an early age, you are supposed to prophesy for your kids. The future of your kids is supposed to be in your hands. And that is why we are talking of time, God's appointed time. When they are still very young, you are supposed to prophesy for them. What would they want to come out of you? Otherwise, if you fail to prophesy for your kids, then the world is going to do so. The social media is going to do so. The peer pressure is going to do so. The society is going to do so. And that is why we are losing generation, because you are failing to understand the times when you're supposed to be a prophet and prophesying for your kids for a brighter future. I like one community. I'm not biased, please forgive me for this, but allow me to use that example. If we look at our counterpart from Lake side or the rural land, you will find those people at an early stage when the kids are still very young. They cannot be able even to walk, but the type of titles they use for them at that time when they're young. They call them doctors, they call them engineers, they call them architects, and surely with the time, whatever the father prophesied at the right time, with the time given time, it comes. Just as Habakkuk was complaining to God, and God told him, now write your vision in bold letters, so that a herald from far can run away with it, and at God's designated time, it shall be fulfilled. So at the time you are supposed to be prophesying for your kids, where are you? So that those kids may have a bright future. And it is also very unfortunate from this tribe in the central province, allow me to use them, the Kikuyus, that sometimes we even call our kids at that early stage funny names, tunamwita ng'ombe. And so what you would expect now for the rest of the time, you would expect a cow to come out of that. We missed them. At the appointed time, when you are supposed to prophesy the future of those kids, we failed. And that is why we said God set appointed times and purpose for everything. And that means he teaches us to live with awareness of his timing. When you go to Psalms 24 and verse 1, it reminds the congregations that everything, including time, belongs to God. And so when we find now Christians saying, I don't have time for the church, I don't have time for that assignment, are we aware what Psalms 24:1 says? That everything, including the time which you don't have, belongs to God. And therefore, as Christian, we should devote a lot of time to God. And maybe I can borrow from my brothers here in Mombasa, the Muslims, they pray almost 7 times a day. And sometimes you ask themselves, where do they get time? If the Muslims are getting time to go to the mosque 4 to 5 times a day, why is it as Christian we don't have time to go to church, maybe midweek prayers, and even attend the church service? And let me tell you, these guys go to the mosque even at times when their business is the climax. And I'll tell you, if you go to his shop around that time when they're going to the mosque, no matter how much you want to purchase, no matter how much money you have, you want to give him, he'll tell you to wait. And you wait, he goes to the church, and then he goes to the mosque, and then comes back. And I remember one instance, we went to Zanzibar. And when we went to Zanzibar, in one of a big shop, we were taking a soda, and the time for the mosque came. They had just opened soda for us. Then we wondered what is going to happen. But this gentleman told us, now, I'm not going to close the shop. I'm going to the mosque. You just enjoy sodas. I'm coming back. So he could not wait for us. He went to the mosque and came back. How, as Christians, how can we learn from those people that they have time for their God, but for us Christians, we don't have time for our God? That's a very big challenge. I always see it every day. In fact, a few minutes before I started my training, you could hear the noise from the mosque. Those guys were going for prayer. But for us Christians, we really take it for granted. Let me remind you, Psalms 24 and verse 1, that everything, including time, belongs to God. And so when you're giving time to God, you're not doing a favor. You're just giving him what belongs to him and what he can also deny you. So please, let us create time for our God, prayers, fasting, and also serving the ministry. When you go to Luke 12, 42 and 48, you find that all servants, and especially the leaders, you be held accountable for how they managed what was entrusted to them. That means when you're given the role of a leader in the church, God has entrusted you with a responsibility for a period of time. And the Luke 12, 42 to 48 judges you harshly that you be held accountable for how you managed what was entrusted to you. If you go to Colossians 4 and 5, walk in wisdom towards outsiders, making the best use of time. Time is a precious resource that must be managed with wisdom. What does it mean? Just as I go back God's appointed time, God give us time in our life. So use it with wisdom, use it at the right time, do what is expected out of you. When you go to John 9 and verse 4, it says, we must work the work for who sent me, while it is during the day, because night is coming, with no one can work. Time for service is limited and urgent. And if you go to Proverbs 6 and verse 6, it tells the human being, go to the ant, run the ways of the ant and become wise, because an ant has no leader, it has no ruler, but it does things at the right time. During the times of harvesting, it gathers food so that it can be able to eat during the rainy and dry seasons. And that is why now, if you go to Genesis 49, talks about the dream of Pharaoh. And the dream of Pharaoh talks about the 7 fat cows and the 7 lean cows. Now he says, out of River Nile came 7 fat cows which grazed along the river, and then later on comes another 7 ugly cows which eat the 7 fat cows, and you could not see the difference. The interpretation of this was, there will be 7 years of baba harvest, and there will be another 7 years of very bad famine. And the Bible proceeds to say that the famine will be so bad that the days of the good harvest will not be remembered again. Technical.
Joe Kirago, technical team kindly mute.
Okay, so when he's talked about the 7 cows, and was told the interpretation of the dream, which brought now Joseph to the limelight, is that during the 7 years of baba harvest, they should save a certain percentage of the harvest, so that during the last 7 years of the famine, they will take care of. So what does that one say? The life of a human being. And that is why it says God sets appointed time and purpose. During the first 7 years is when you are young, you are working, you have energy, you have resources. And then the last 7 years is when you have retired, you don't have any energy, you don't have resources. And therefore, if you never worked and saved during the first 7 years, then the last 7 years will be so worse that your days and the glorious days of working would never be remembered. And therefore, we cannot say that the concept of time is not well elaborated in the Bible. Even that one elaborates the concept of time. That if you waste a lot of time during your young age, now during the old age, you are really going to suffer. Read that Genesis 49, and you'll be able to see what happened. Now, if you go to Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 1, it says, there is time for everything, and a vision for every activity under the heavens. God timing guides proper stewardship. That means if you observe time, as the Ecclesiastes is saying, there is time for everything. There is a season for everything under the heaven, and this one is under God's timing. And as a steward, you have to observe these and give the necessary effort you need. So if you go to Psalms 90 and 12, this one verses arouse me or makes me so happy. And it says, Moses asked God, so teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. This was Moses. And we know how close Moses was to God. But he goes ahead and realizes even himself, he could not manage his days, he could not manage his time, and requested wisdom from God. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. So this is a prayer of divine wisdom to understand how brief life is, and the importance of valuing time is limited, God-given resources, so that we do the right thing at the right time, because even time is limited. We shall not live forever, but the period God has given us to live, during that time, what was your contribution to the big mission which was set down by Jesus Christ? It encourages stewards to prioritize what matters most, managing their responsibility and resources with intentionality and wisdom. And therefore, it calls for a daily reflection on how we use our time so that we can avoid wasting and to focus on what truly matters, as every day counts in the service God and to the others. I want to repeat that sentence once again. It calls for daily reflection on how we use our time. And that means to avoid waste of time and to focus on what really matters as every day count in service to God and others. Every day counts in the service of God to the others. And therefore, as a Christian, it is high time we stand and reflect. How do we, how do we commit ourselves of our time in serving God? And that matters even to the others. Now, what is the application of time? This teaching of time, what is the application of this to the Christian leaders? We are the Christian leaders. Today, I'm training leaders, and I want to look at the application of time when it comes to the church leadership. And one of them is that it requires that as leaders, there should be wise use of time, allows the leader to prioritize critical tasks that advance God's kingdom and care for those they serve. I want to repeat again, it gives you leaders, or it puts you to assess as a leader, prioritize critical tasks that advance God's kingdom and care for those they serve. Number two, it also helps you to recognize that the limited nature of life, and this motivates leader to lead with urgency, purpose, and accountability before God. Limited nature of life, we are not here for long. And the period when we are here, the 7 years, when we have energy and when we have time to make things happen, please contribute also to the ministry and make things happen, because we must lead with urgency, purpose, and accountability before God. Leaders who manage their time well model faithful stewardship, inspiring others to honor God with their lives. And I'm also repeat this, that leaders who manage their time well, they do a very noble job. One, they model faithful stewardship, inspire others to honor God with their lives. And therefore, they will always admire you and would have left role model. And that is why we are saying, look at the times which are changing, in terms of technology, in terms of our youth. We shall not be leaders in those churches forever. It will come a time that we need to leave others. But the question is, have we modeled them well? Have we taught them on how to use time? Have we inspired them to honor God with their lives? That is the big question. And this one is also given to the sons of Eli. Look at what happened to the Eli. He had his sons, which he was supposed to mentor with the time, so that when he leaves, he'll be able to take over the work of God. But he said things did not go as expected, and when the time came, they all died together one day, leaving a very big gap. And therefore, as our leaders, we must manage time well so that we can model faithful stewardship, inspire others to come after us so that they can be able to serve God. Still under applications, Christian leaders are called to steward their time well, understanding it is a sacred trust from God to be used for his glory. So we are saying here that as a stewardship of your time, you should understand that time is sacred, trust from God. God have trusted you with that time, and it should be used for his glory. So when you give excuses that you don't have time for the ministry, for the assignment given, you don't have time for prayers, you don't have time for church activities, let me bring to your notice that this time is sacred trust from God to be used for his glory. Then question yourself, how many times do you commit? Effective time management empowers leaders to fulfill their roles diligently, avoiding postponing and distractions. So you don't keep on postponing. We'll do it today, we'll do it tomorrow. And a lot of distractions will come across. And therefore, when you have effective time management, it will empower you to fulfill their roles in good time. Keeping time properly helps leaders balance their responsibility. That means there's time for rest, there's time for reflection, and these ones leads to sustaining long-term ministry effectiveness. So the effectiveness of a ministry is good. I'm also want to use another example that one time I attended, I went to visit my cousin in Ongata Rongai, and this gentleman goes to the church we call Jehovah's Witness. And being now a visitor, When he came to a Sunday, he would not stay in the house. So he requested me to accompany him, which I did. But there's some few lessons I learned from this Jehovah Witness. These guys are very good in keeping time. If they say that the meeting is going to start at 8, a few minutes to 8, somebody is already on the podium. If the other speaker is supposed to come about 5 minutes to 3 minutes to, he's already in the podium. And they managed the activity so well. And I admired the way they did it. That is one thing I admired out of them. So I'm calling my Christian brothers, let us not take time for granted. Let us not take for granted. Know that there's a purpose we are sent here to fulfill, and we are told that time is sacred, God-given, and entrusted into our hearts. So as I summarize my first item, tips for effective time management. 1, set your goals correctly. Set your goals, because when you set your goals, you also give them timeline. When do I want to achieve this? Now, prioritize wisely. As the Bible says, there is time for everything. Know the seasons and the time, as the Bible has spoken. Know the time to bring your kids to prophesy for them. Know the time to bless them, because when you're 65 years until when goals come to you, you are supposed to be doing one thing, blessing your kids to ensure sustainability of your family life. Then set a time limit. You cannot be doing one thing forever. There must be a set time limit for any task or assignment to be achieved. Now, number 4, take breaks between tasks. Once you have been able to finish the first assignment, take a break, reflect what you have achieved, now proceed to the others. Always organize yourself. An organized person is disciplined person, is a person with vision. Remove non-essential tasks. Sometimes we do waste a lot of time with non-essential tasks. And today, mostly you realize that the phone, and especially the social media, has taken most of our time. And you find even in the church, we still go with those phones. And you find the preaching is going on and people are concentrating on. Or maybe in the middle of the chat and somebody is calling you, forcing you to get outside, and when you're coming in, you don't know how far or where you left and where you are coming in. So remove non-essential tasks. Let us devote time for God, purposely for God. And always, all well said, always run to plan ahead. And therefore, as I conclude, I'll say this: managing times wisely is essential stewardship that every Christian leader must embrace to fulfill their calling faithfully. I want to repeat again: managing time wisely is essential stewardship that every Christian leader must embrace to fulfill their calling effectively. And that marks the end of my first session. And maybe I will now take time to recap, or maybe to ask a few people to make few comments concerning what I have done, because now what I have done, I have just presented one of the components which I'm supposed to be stopping. And maybe I'll allow my brother Chege maybe to put a few comments, and I also welcome my brother Gaita. I also welcome my technical team to give a word before we proceed. So, Bwana Chege, 1 minute.
We are approaching you, Daktari. For the job well done, time management is everything. That is the essence of everybody across where we are, the global perspective. And without much ado, let us give your technical team an opportunity to add the spanners to the works, because again, this is an environment of running leadership development, and I think I want to give them each a minute to make a comment before we can transition on. 5 minutes before we make it to the next session.
Okay, I'll start with my Pastor Charles Gaita. I want to give you a minute. I know you're also very good in timekeeping, so Pastor Charles Gaita, 1 minute.
I want to thank you because of teaching us about stewardship and time. And I thank God because of being in this platform. And I could say that it is godly for us to keep time, because God's purposes are fulfilled through time. And it's the best thing that I've ever had. It's a good training and teaching for us to embrace time, because even God works within the time framework. to fulfill his purposes. Because even when God was speaking during the, if you read the Bible in the book of Genesis 17:21, it says that, but my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at his first season next year. So it was based on time. So it is good thing to keep time, because it is the foundation of everything that we have, and every vision requires time. So God bless you so much for that, and I'm pleasured to be here.
Thank you, Pastor Charles Gaita. I also have my assistant pastor. These guys are my pastors. They pastor me, and I really treasure them. So, Lawrence, please have a minute to comment.
Thank you, my senior and my mentor, Daktari. I think this is one of the great teachings that you've been able to share about time, because for sure, we Christians do very bad with time and always try and create excuses, but we always find time for ourselves and don't find time for God. So I think you've shared very great insights that personally I'm going to take and make good use of them. And I'm sure this training, by the end, by the end of this training, we'll have learned so many things and we'll be well equipped as good Christians, as good stewards. And I'm so humbled and happy to hear about this. Thank you so much, Daktari. God bless you and the entire team.
Thank you, Lawrence. So, brother.
Okay, before now you continue, thank you. They have made the comments, the submissions. That is very good. And I think we are moving on well in terms of managing our time, which is of essence. And if my memory serves me right, I think Dr. Joyce, you are in the house. Dr. Joyce, are you in the house? Dr. Joyce DAY3, are you in the house by any chance? I thought I saw you. And I think it is difficult because we trainers, we kind of like backing up and knowing what is exactly happening so that we can be able to build on the story. And especially now that you are talking about time management. So back to you, Daktari. And before that, I think we can give at least 3-4 minutes to engage a bit. I just want to give anybody who would want to say something. We still have 3 minutes to be able to engage. That is how we do our thing together with Daktari. And we are doing quite a number of certifications for quite about so many managers within the country called Kenya. Anybody who has a comment? And again, sometimes we pick at random so that again, if you are not able to talk when I pick you at random, maybe you can always be able to pass the button a bit. If at Tabitha, I can see you in the house, and I know you have been there since day one. Can you make one comment? If Tabitha from PCEA Utawara.
You also give a Gordon Muriuki, has raised his hand.
Good. Gordon Muriuki, Chairman PCMF Parish level. Take the mantle first. Gordon.
Thank you, Elder. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can do it here.
Thank you, Dr. for the teachings today and the insight. My question is, the people that we lead, sometimes they don't have time or create time for the fellowships and the meetings. So many apologies. Like for men, we go ahead even slaughter our goats to make them come, but we don't see them. So we do not see them. So which other way can we use to bring these men to the church or to the fellowships?
Okay, Daktari, take note on that one. I want you to answer 3 questions at a go so that you can be able to answer them at the same pace. That is the first question. Men are not available in the ministry. We are not keeping time on one of them, and I think we have a challenge. We are the stewards. We are the priests of the house. We are supposed to take the mantle, and I think something that needs to be addressed. That's a question number 1. We have any other person with a question? Earlier alone, I saw Angela raising the hand. Angela Kidiji, are you in the house? Angela Kidiji, are you in the house? I saw your hand. Angela? Then somebody called Christine Akinyi, I saw your hand up. And again, I'm also being informed, and that is the wisdom that we have in the house. There could be 2 or 3 people listening to us somewhere. And I think that one we also need to respect it. 160. There could be 2 or 3 people listening to us in one area using one common screen. That is also very good enough. And so far, so good, it is important to mention that. We have anybody that we are crossing out in terms of the question? Daktari, first of all, answer that question.
Okay, now allow me to answer these questions and allow me to proceed immediately for the interest of time. Now, somebody said, as men, we do not have time, and those are the people we need in the ministry. And I think this question was answered by my video. A very senior president within the company was always asked to attend the Bible study, to attend church prayers, and he would always give excuse that he was very busy. Then he was told, in the normal course of his checkup, he was detected with cancer. And immediately now he knew cancer was going to death. He started putting his priorities right. One, he had time for the church. He had the time for the Bible study. He had even time for prayers. The speaker continued and said, we always have time for things which are important, but we don't have time for things which are not important. And therefore, it is good to let men know that time is a sacred resources given to us by God. He has entrusted to us that time. And therefore, being a precious gift, being a sacred resource given and entrusted to us to God, then we are mandated to give part of that time to God. And therefore, excuses will never be accepted. So create time. And what we do is that we do not even have time. Even for this training, I did not have time, but I had to create time because it was necessary for me. And therefore, I request men redefine their goals. Who is your creator? Where are you saying you don't have time and who has given you this time? So redefine, reorganize yourself. There's always plenty of time to take care for God. Thank you, Francis. Allow me to proceed with my second training. And I think I have shared and I agree that we are seeing the presentation. I want to go to the second item. Are we there? Francis, read for me what you can see.
We are talking of stewardship of resources.
Yes, yeah, we are there. Now, this is one of the very sensitive areas which I can be able to handle concerning the church. Because as church, we come there because we have trust, we have faith. And the moment our faith and trust is broken on how we handle, of how resources are handled, then you realize what happens in that church, the church stagnates because the faithful are not willing any longer to give. And therefore, the culture which is created in terms of accountability and the level of integrity on how the church resources are handled determines the future of that church. We have seen some churches grow from small churches to bigger churches to many branches. But if you look, one of the riding factor is there's a lot of accountability and transparency on how resources are utilized. But if you see a church has stagnated, the faithfuls are not willing to give for any activity in the church, they know there's a problem in the stewardship of resources. And I really want to look at this issue of stewardship resources from what we call corporate perspective to what we call now the church perspective. And then from there, we'll have a wide discussion. And I want to use a good example where most of the time we say we don't have enough resources. But if those resources are properly utilized for the right purposes, those resources are more than sufficient to take the church and to take the congregation to the next level. And I want to borrow from a country called Burkina Faso. So Burkina Faso, previously known as the Upper Volta, but was changed to Burkina Faso by Sankara to mean a country of upright men, is a country which was characterized, or maybe which was colonized by French, and the people suffered a lot of poverty. In fact, they were not food sufficient. They totally depended on the West for everything. But when this person came in, stewarded the resources on the right direction, I simply want you to see the results for yourself. We are talking of a very small country which depended on friends. People have abject poverty. They do not have food sufficient, but let us see what has been achieved within a very short time. So there we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Intervlog.
Francis, am I loud and clear? The video?
Yes, you are audible. We can hear it. Play it on.
Oh, excellent, excellent. There we go.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Intervlog. I said, this is Intervlog. What a moment. What a sight. Burkina Faso is rewriting history, proving to the world that self-sufficiency is not a dream. It is a reality. Look at these vast fields, cultivated by none other than the nation's own prisoners. This is the leadership of President Captain Ibrahim Traoré in action, a true visionary, a revolutionary. While some African nations are crying over the withdrawal of USAID, Burkina Faso is standing tall, harvesting its biggest yield ever. And who made this possible? The prisoners. Yes, under the brilliant leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso has turned its correctional institutions into centers of agricultural revolution. Cut to Burkina Faso's Minister of Justice and Human Rights, Mr. Edaso Rodrigue Bayala, addressing the media during his visit to Baporo Prison Center, standing before rows of wheat fields cultivated by inmates. Bayala said, "This is the first time that the center has been at this level of production since its creation. What you see today is the result of the Presidential Initiative for Food Self-Sufficiency and the Agricultural Offensive launched by the Ministry of Agriculture. It is a question of realizing the vision of the head of state, producing what we consume, and ensuring Burkina Faso never relies on foreign aid again." Cut back to the speaker, eyes wide with excitement, shaking his head in admiration. "My people, do you hear that? The first time in history, thanks to the bold and strategic decision of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, prisoners are not just sitting idle behind bars. No, they are working, they are cultivating, they are feeding the nation. While other African leaders are lamenting the loss of USAID funding, Burkina Faso is saying, no more begging, no more dependency. We will feed ourselves. And look at the results. 50 tons of wheat harvested from just one location, Baporo Prison Center. And that is only the beginning. Prisoners harvesting wheat, potatoes, and bananas, smiling as they work. Some of them speak directly to the camera, said, "Before, I had no skills, no future. But here, I have learned to farm. I know that when I leave here, I will be able to support myself. We are not just growing food. We are growing our future. Our work feeds the nation. We are proud. This is leadership. This is governance." Captain Ibrahim Traoré did not wait for handouts. No, he took charge. He saw that the prisons were full of young, able-bodied men under 45. Instead of being a burden on the state, he turned them into an asset. And the results, mind-blowing. Burkina Faso is now on the path to total food sovereignty. While other nations are panicking over USAID withdrawal, Burkina Faso is exporting surplus food. This is how a leader prepares his nation for the future. Cut to Burkina Faso's Minister of Agriculture, Commander Ismail Sombi, inspecting the farmland, nodding with satisfaction. Minister Sombi, archival footage. "This project is a testament to the vision of our president. With the right policies and determination, we can turn every resource, including our manpower, into productive assets for national development. We are proud to support this initiative, which will reduce food imports and strengthen our economy. Brothers and sisters, Burkina Faso is showing us the way. They are proving that Africa does not need to rely on foreign aid to survive. Look at these farms. Look at the wheat, the potatoes, the avocados. This is a movement. This is a revolution. President Captain Ibrahim Traoré has turned what was once a challenge into an opportunity. Other African leaders, where are you? Why are you not following this example? Why are your prisons still centers of waste when they could be centers of productivity? Why are you crying about USAID instead of mobilizing your own people to build your nations? Captain Ibrahim Traoré has given you the blueprint. Follow it. Final scene. A drone shot of endless farmland cultivated by inmates with the Burkinabe flag waving in the background. This is only the beginning. Under President Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso is rising. Food self-sufficiency is not just a goal. It is a reality. And for that, we say thank you, President Traoré. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for your leadership. And to the rest of Africa, wake up.
Yes, I think I really don't have to comment much. It is well spoken. And you have seen, we are saying this country was not food sufficient. In fact, for a long time, it was a colony. But you can see with the limited resources, what they have said. They are no longer relying on East or West, but they are relying with the resources which they have. They have mobilized their people. And you can see now, as the other African countries are commenting about the withdrawal of USAID, these guys are saying we are exporting surplus. And you're saying now, no more colonialism. So the church as a leader, the resources contributed by the faithful can be able to turn around the church. But you see, because of poor stewardship of the resources, we have always even become a victim of the politicians, that we have to rely with the politicians and bring them into the church. And you have seen the negative consequences of what these politicians have done to our church, to an extent that now our church has become a political center for these politicians. We don't need them. We don't need them in our church. As a good leader, the limited resources, as long as a leader, you have a very clear vision where you want to take your people, my friend, the resources are more than enough. Look at this country, which was a desert. In less than 2 years, he led them from poor food insufficient to extra food sufficient, where they are not even exporting. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I would say, when it comes to the aspect of stewarding the resources of the church, we must do it with a lot of integrity, a lot of transparency, and surprisingly enough, we could even hear people confessing, these were the prisoners. We are not only growing food, we are growing our nations. I came here when I did not have skills. I have acquired skills, and I will be able to make our country much better than what we did. So what am I saying? When we go to the church, let us stewardship the resources and do to us with those faithful. Let us set an example. Let them see the growth. Let's see them the level of accountability and integrity in what we do. And that way, they will contribute their resources without being forced. But contrary to that, let us see what is happening in the church. We need to revolutionize the church. We need to revolutionize our leadership, bring in the aspect of accountability, responsibility, so that people can have trust in what we do. And when we call upon them for any church project or for any church project, they will be able to contribute willingly, because you could hear even the prisoners are saying, we are now not only growing food, but are growing our nation. What am I saying? A transformative leader transforms people, transforms institutions, and transforms the whole society. So we have a duty as church leaders to transform, first of all, ourselves, transform the congregations we are going to lead, and transform the church in general, so that we can be seen as good stewardship of the resources endowed to us. But contrary to that, let us see what is happening in our churches. So, stewardship of resources, if you read 1 Corinthians 29 and 14, but who am I and who are my people? What we should be able to give as generously as this. Everything comes from you, and we are giving you only what comes from your hand. This verse highlights the importance of recognizing that all resources belong to God and should be managed responsibly. So that means, even if we are not borrowing from Burkina Faso, us as Christian leaders, we have a duty and responsibility, because we're saying everything comes from God, and we only give you only what comes from you. And therefore, there is need for us to recognize that resources belong to God and should be used for the glory of God. And anytime we are trusted with those resources, with the faithful, with a very clear vision, like that president had, we are able to steward the church to financial sustainability without relying from political or whatever defined, and relying on the resources given to us. All what we need is to put accountability. But what exactly is happening in the church? If you look at accountability, it means, look at Acts 6 and 3. Therefore, and this is very painful, and especially when we are not being accountable and transparent with the resources for the church. If you read Acts 6 and 3, therefore, brothers, pick out from among you 7 men of good repute, full of spirit and wisdom, whom we apply and appoint for this duty of leadership. If you proceed and read 1 Corinthians 4 verse 1 and 2, this then says, this is how you ought to regard us, a servant of Christ, and as those entrusted with mysteries of God has revealed. Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove to be faithful. So as a leader, and you have been given the trust, or maybe you're given the resources, or the role of a steward in terms of the resources of the faithful, then you must also prove to be faithful. So this verse underscores the necessity of having trustworthy leaders to oversee the church resources to ensure accountability. And if you read Matthew 7, verses 3 to 5, it explains that. And where does accountability start? Accountability begins with the self-examination and managing one's own fault before overseeing the others. So self-examination. When you're a leader and when you examine yourself, how trustworthy are you? Because the moment you're trustworthy and accountable for yourself, even others will be accountable to you. And therefore, we are supposed to set an example in terms of accountability and integrity. Now, if you go to 2 Corinthians, verses 8, 20, and 21, we want to avoid any criticism. As leaders stewarding the resources of God, we need to avoid any criticism of the way we administer this liberal gift, the gift of leadership. How do we administer among our people the gift of stewarding the resources given to us? And as we talk of resources in terms of physical resources, we talk of time resources, and we also talk of human resources. How are you transforming and making that congregation achieve what is expected? For we are taking pain to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the people, but also in the eyes of the Lord. So whatever we are doing as leaders, and in terms of the resources, we are doing it and taking out of pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the people, but also in the eyes of the Lord. This emphasizes the need for transparency. It also emphasizes the need for integrity in handling what we call the church resources. Ladies and gentlemen, it is on to you now. That there are very key issues we need to do when you're doing the resources. In stewardship of resources, the aspect of accountability. In stewardship of the resources, the aspect of integrity in the management of our resources. Those ones said and done, and we've seen, but now how do we go about it? Let us look at the narrative of Ananias and his wife Sapphira. Yes, so these guys, they had an agreement with the apostles that they would get everything, they would sell everything, and they would bring the resources to the hands of the apostles and would be shared among them. But you know the story, what happened. As the narrative goes, Ananias and his wife Sapphira sold a parcel of land and donated part of the sales proceeds to the church. But they conspired to lead the apostles Peter and others to believe they have donated the entire sum. Sometimes we also talk of tithe, the salary which will be given, and God has given us is only 10% of it. When we have the church project, a certain amount is required, and we conspire that we are not, since nobody is aware of what I get, then I can give whatever I think is given. Now read from the narrative of Ananias and his wife. For the conspiring to lie as they did, both of them were struck dead. It's good that God is God full of mercy. But some of the things we are doing as Christians, when it comes to managing the resources, is that God has mercy, and what we talk of his mercy is forever. Otherwise, most of us would have been struck dead for a number of things. So when it comes to the resources, let us be trustworthy. Let us avoid dramas and other things. So now, I want to look at the application of the story of the 10 minas and application to the role of people in terms of stewardship of resources. And the story goes, if you look at Luke 19, 11 and 27, it talks about the story of the 10 minas as the people who are entrusted with resources by their master. And the consequence of that is that the story goes, in this parable, an noble man going to receive a kingdom gives 10 servants, each one minas, which was a large sums of money, and instruct them to engage in business until I come back. If you read Luke 19 and verse 13, you'll see that. When he turns the king, he calls his servant to account on how they have used their minas. And the two servants, the one who was given 5, he was able to multiply them to 10. The one who was given 2, he was able to multiply them to 4. But the one who was given 1 said, "Oh, master, how rugged are you? I know you are crooked men. You like harvesting where you never planted. And therefore, what I did, just dug a hole and put your mina there. And now that you have come, here it is." And he said that servant who hid the mina out of fear and did nothing out of it, received a rebuke and loss of his mina. And that means the two servants who have invested and multiplied the minas, each one was given authority over the cities according to their faithfulness. And the most interesting one is this one. His master replied, the one who was given 5, his master replied, "Well done, good servant, because you have been faithful in every small matter, you shall have authority over 10 cities. Oh my God, look at that. Because you have been faithful over small matter, then you shall have authority over 10 cities. Today, the role we have been given and the resources we have been given, how faithful have we been? And when I talk of resources, it could be in terms of talents. Talent means you have been given talented maybe to sing in the church, maybe you are intercessor in the church, maybe you are an usher in the church, or maybe you are the preacher on the side. How have you been able to multiply the talent which you have given you? Maybe you are the one who plays the keyboard, you are the one who plays the piano, but how effectively have you been able to multiply that? Today, if you leave the church, you have also trained others who can come over so that in the church there will be no gap. And that is said, by only being given 5 talents, this man was entrusted with authority over 10 cities. Today, if God comes and asks us, out of the gift and resources he gives us, how many will be entrusted with more? Because of the return we have been given, how have we used it? And it is good that this person was given authority over 10 cities. And it is said, the one who hid was rebuked, because he was told, in fact, the master said, I would even have better put my money in the bank, it would have multiplied. What a worthless and useless servant are you? Now look, compare and contrast. Today, with those resources, where can you be? Application of the role of stewardship from a Christian perspective. The first thing is aspect of faithful stewardship. When you are given the resources, you have to be very faithful. You have to be very accountable. So in terms of faithful stewardship, the parable teaches that stewards are entrusted by God with resources. They're entrusted with God with assignment, and they're expected to manage them diligently, producing fruits or increasing them. That's according to Luke 19 and verse 13. Then ask yourself, the talent which you have been given, the task which you have been given in the church, how have you been able to multiply it? As a leader, as an intercessor, as a steward in terms of maybe usher or a head of a section? How have you been able to do that? Then there's also aspect of risk and initiativeness. Steward must be willing to actively use what they are given, taking the initiative rather than being idle because of fear. If you look at Luke 19:20-24, the one who decided to hide his talent, for fear he might lose it and maybe the master might be against him. Look at the rebuke he got. So I'm asking now, the talent or the resources which have been given by you by God, and we say the body of Christ is made of many parts, and the many parts are the many gifts we are given as Christians. How have you tried it? Are you hiding it in fear, or are you actively multiplying it so that you can be entrusted with more? That's a question mark we need to ask ourselves today. So accountability. At Christians' returns, steward will give an account of their stewardship, showing how they managed God's resources of the task which they were given. That is Luke 19 and 15. All of us shall be accountable. And I look at that day, and I look at the resources you have been given by God, and the period you have stayed in the church. The question will be, how did you multiply that? And the Bible is very clear in Luke 19 and 15, saying, steward will give an account of their stewardship, showing how they manage God's resources or the task they are given. So today, if an audit is done of the task or assignment you are given in the church, or the assignment God gave you, and that is the reason nobody is born in this world without an assignment. So everybody is born and given an assignment. It's only sometimes you take time before we discover assignment. I will ask yourself now, how did you use those resources for yourself, or how accountable can you be? So reward for faithfulness. And we can see this one in Luke 19 and 17 and 19. So faithful rewards are rewarded with greater responsibility and honor. So faithful stewards are rewarded with greater responsibility and honor. That if you do what is expected out of you, with a lot of integrity and a lot of transparency, you'll be rewarded. And that is why we'll say we'll be rewarded in heaven for what we did. And Paul said, in as much as I'm preaching and doing this, I'm also pressing for my reward, because he was actually being faithful in the resources he was given and was pushing the ministry with the best he could be able to do. So warning against negligence, and this one should go to all of you, and especially those men who are saying they do not have time to come to church and commit themselves with the activities of the church. So warning comes against you in Luke 19:22 and 26. Failure to use what God entrusts you leads to loss and judgment. Like that servant who was given one, he did not use what was entrusted to him, and judgment came upon him. So come the answer, I'm still answering the questions. The last part of it is now the warning again is the negligence. I don't have time. I'm so busy. The question is, according to Luke 19:22 and 26, failure to use what God entrusts leads to loss and judgment. So application still to Christian, it says faithfulness in small assignments leads to greater responsibility and rewards. So the moment you fulfill or you're trusted with few resources, these ones lead to greater responsibility and ones. And you might find from a Christian perspective, then God can also reward you. Not necessarily even you personally can reward the generations, your children, and even in terms of belonging in the society. So this one can also be seen. Leaders will give an account to God for their stewardship, highlighting the need for diligence, accountability, and holiness in leadership roles. So that one is also required, as I can conclude that. In conclusion, the parable powerfully illustrates the role of a steward as one who is entrusted with God's gifts, responsible to multiply and manage them, knowing there will be a future reckoning for their stewardship. I want to repeat this one to men, and also want to repeat this one to myself, that the parable powerfully illustrates the role of a steward as one who is entrusted with God's gifts and responsible to multiply and manage them, knowing there will be a future reckoning for their stewardship. Every steward will be able to account for that. Allow me to take a minute, and because of time, I'll only allow my technical team and maybe one or two people from Mutawara. Like I've seen Zipporah have raised her hand. Zipporah, please, let me give you the first point to comment for 1 minute. I'm rushing against time. I still have another important presentation to make. So Zipporah, I saw you raise your hand. If you have something urgent, please, your minute is there. Zipporah? Is Zipporah, you are not there? Let me go to my technical team. And let's start with Lawrence Mwakaru. Please make your comment as we proceed. Charles, be preparing.
Thank you, Daktari. I think today we are having a dosage of its own because all of us here as leaders who are attending this training today, I think we have a lot to learn. And my take home, Daktari, as I finish, is the accountability part that it's always challenging to the stewards and to the leaders of, the kingdom of God. And it's one thing that can make, things work well, and it's right before God. So thank you, Daktari. This is a knowledge that we need all to have, especially when we work towards the common goal of uniting people.
Pastor Charles, please, your comment.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. And I want just to say that this program is giving us a lot of help, and we are having a more understanding about the principle of managing time, because that is the basic thing, that is the best thing that people need, because sometimes we fail to set our goals because of mismanaging time, and sometimes we fail to eliminate time wasters and those things that waste a lot of time, because most of the time devil will use that so that we may waste a lot of time. You become busy even where you're not supposed to be busy for the work of God. So it's good that we learn and also relearn, because God is here for us. And this training, this is a basic learning that is helping us to prioritize our tasks and also to set clear goals on managing time. So thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Gaita. Allow me to give Zipporah Kananu, who has raised hand. Please, Zipporah, take 1 minute. Zipporah and Mother, you have raised your hands. Unmute yourself, please, and say something. Mother.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just to comment on a point that you made as you did your presentation about the multiplier effect of time. A meeting is called. There are 15 members in that meeting. For example, a church group meeting. And the person probably was supposed to do the presentation, or the chair or any other person comes late by 10 minutes. Just the understanding that when you multiply 10 by the 15 members of that committee, there's 150 minutes going into waste. I got scared because it is in this particular kind of grouping where ordinarily people don't come on time, and rarely do you find even people apologizing. So thank you so much for that insight. It got me a bit worried, yet informed. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. Zipporah, you're raising your hand, and I'm giving you a chance to say something. Zipporah, I can see you raising your hand. Zipporah Kananu, what is challenging you? Okay, Francis Chege, Zipporah is not able to say something. So Francis Chege, 1 minute, please, and don't go beyond 1 minute.
Mine, I'm not even going to answer anything. Let me give somebody a chance. Ajara, there was somebody who was, and even somebody called Jude was also raising the hand. Anybody who want to make a comment? The 1 minute, I'm giving it to somebody somewhere.
Yes, we are running against time.
Of any comment, I think let us continue. Zipporah Kenanu, Rebecca. Yes, Rebecca. Rebecca, do you have anything to say?
Praise God.
Amen.
I just wanted to comment on time management, because most of the time, most members are unable to manage time. And I want to thank you, our teacher, because we've been told that when you don't manage time, there is time wastage, which makes us drift from purpose and lose focus on God's priorities, which is a very good point. Thank you so much.
Angela, please, you be the last person.
Angela Jerry Kideji, Utawara.
I think, Francis, you need to computer detail so that at least when it comes to the issues of getting the button is there. So allow me to stop the presentation there and go to something else. I want to go to my last assignment, and my last assignment is faithful leaders manage assignment successfully. Francis, can you see that? Francis, yes, can you see that? Yes, you can see faithful leaders manage assignment
successfully.
Oh, excellent. So now, many times you are given assignment, and technical team, please do your work. Once we are given assignment, we are supposed to do it because we are doing it for our own. And I'll tell you this, even in the company where you are employed, before your employer employed you, the first person who assigned you is God. And whatever you're doing there, you are doing it for God. For example, personally, I'm a teacher, and therefore I know before Kenyatta University employed me, my first employer who will be answerable to is God for what I do. The same case if you're a doctor, the first person to be answerable to is not the government which have employed you, but to God who has given you the assignment. So do it as if you're doing it for the Lord, because a service to mankind is a service to God. And therefore, there is also reward for those people who successfully do the assignment. So in terms of managing the assignment, we say God entrusts each believer with assignment to manage it faithfully for his glory. So any assignment which you have given is purposely for the glory of God. And therefore, I want to borrow from one story, and I want to borrow from a story of Nehemiah. And I know I don't want to go into details. I'd just like to go read the story of Nehemiah, and you see, it's a powerful biblical example of diligence in leadership, managing significant responsibilities with persistence and care. So his story in the book of Nehemiah shows the key leadership and stewardship quality. So we want to borrow from him so that you can be able to know what is expected. So the assignment of this gentleman came when things were really wrong, rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. And you can see Jerusalem was in ruins. But for him, Nehemiah was serving with the king, Para, as a cupbearer, so he did not have to bother. But when this one came to his attention, he did not ignore. He took the noble assignment during the challenging time, to an extent that even some of his people opposing him, some of the people could not be able to see the vision, yet the task was coming at time even when you had oppressors and people attacking him. They say that one time, those people building the wall of Jerusalem were having the building equipment and a spear on one hand. What a hard times and a lot of challenges from within. But how did he successfully accomplish his assignment, and what lessons can we learn from this person in his work? So Nehemiah had a very clear vision, and this clear vision was rebuilding the wall, and he communicated the vision effectively to motivate people to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. That one you read in Nehemiah 2:17 and 18. So many times when we are leaders and we have a vision what we want to do to our church, do we have that audacity to articulate and effectively communicate the idea or the vision to the people so that they can be able to work? Then he said, he also demonstrated what we call strong work ethic by working alongside the people rather than delegating everything. If you read Nehemiah 5 and 16, that he did not delegate for the people, he did not oversee, but he was part and parcel of those people working. So even in the church, when you give an assignment, or when you want to give an assignment, do you only delegate to the other people? Are you seen to be part and parcel of it? Technical team. So work ethic, strong work ethic, whereby you just identify yourself with people and work with them. He was adaptable and ready to meet the opposition. He organized guards and workers simultaneously to protect and progress to work. So sometimes when we talk of oppositions, sometimes we face challenges in our leadership position to an extent that we give up. But let me assure you, anytime you are given an assignment in the church, opposition will all be there. But it's upon you to organize your guards and organize the people or the team you're working with and progress despite what we call the protest, because always people will hinder progress and not like any achievement. And therefore, you as a leader, it is your duty, just as Nehemiah did. He was able to adapt, he was ready to meet the opposition, he organized his team and workers simultaneously to protect and progress work simultaneously. He also showed integrity, because showing what we call or addressing social injustice and protecting the vulnerable among his people. And that is what a leader should do. We are of different people in the society. There are those who are vulnerable and there are those who are not. And therefore, as a part of integrity, it is us to balance them. In our congregation, we don't address a person because he's rich or he's poor, but as long as he's a part of the congregation, that is the parameter or the standard we use. He's a Christian, is part and parcel of us, not his socio-economic status or his political status. And therefore, Joshua is apprehended because he showed integrity by addressing social injustice and protect the vulnerability among people. You go to most of the churches and people are divided. Some are divided in terms of their economic status. Some of them are divided in terms of region they come from. But now, are we really, as leaders, addressing this social injustice and protecting those who are vulnerable among us? His leadership was marked by foresight, there was perseverance, and care for the welfare of his followers. So he taken care of his followers. The other thing, now let us now lead from what we call Nehemiah's leadership model. Now, from this Nehemiah's leadership model in rebuilding the wall, what are some of the profound lessons for anyone entrusted with managing an assignment faithfully under God? So what are these lessons can we be able to learn from Jeremiah? And I would expect you to go and read more about Nehemiah and the challenges he faced. So one, if you read Hebrews 13 and verse 17, it is said, leaders, and I want to repeat again, leaders are accountable to God for how they manage their duties or the assignment given to them. The Hebrew says, obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls and will give an account. So as leaders, those souls have been entrusted to you. And as followers and the part of the congregations, we are supposed to obey them so that they can be able to fulfill their duties and assignments, for they are keeping watch over our souls and they will give an account for each one of us. So in the story of Jeremiah, let me just look at an issue. What a good leader who is guided by God. And we say good leaders cares for the people and their situation. How? One, Nehemiah listened to the voice of the people. The voice of the people was, we are crying because of the wall. Jerusalem has been destroyed. What are we going to do? So he also showed care for their situations. Sometimes as leaders, we do not take care of the situations our faithfuls are passing through. And you'll find with the current challenging economic situations, a lot of social injustice, a lot of stress in the places of work, a lot of family breakdown and all that, we should also show care for these situations. Nehemiah identified with the people. That means a good leader, if you want his assignment being completed, he must identify with the people he's leading. His thought or his way of thinking and way of doing things was in terms of we and us. And that is 2:17 and 20. That everything was achieved was because of we and was done for us. Many a times you have seen when you run the project and the faithfuls have contributed a lot of their resources in terms of times and also their money, you find the leader now want to take the glory by himself. No, it's not like that. Think in terms of we and us, and your assignment will be completed. He came to understand and identify with the trouble we are in. So as a good leader, for you to accomplish your assignment, you need to identify and understand whatever the congregation is going through and be able to identify with it. So God leaders define the reality of the situation. And this is what actually is missing in our church. And I would like to hear what Nehemiah did. When Nehemiah said, you see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned. One thing here I would like to know, he was not describing his personal agenda, but was assessing the common situation faced by all his people. So as a leader, don't push your personal agenda. Look at the common situation faced by the people, find a way of addressing it, and give a solution to the people. Unless the reality can be described with a lot of honesty, ladies and gentlemen, it is impossible to make progress. And that is why you'll find, because of this issue of reality and honesty, a lot of churches, a lot of branches have actually stagnated. What are we saying? When Joshua was saying, when Nehemiah was saying, look at the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins and its gates burned, he was not describing his personal agenda, but assessing the common situation faced by the other people. And this one with a lot of truth. And that is why we are saying, as long as we are leaders in the church, we are given assignment to accomplish. Unless the reality can be described with honesty, progress is impossible. Nothing is more limiting to a group than inability to talk about the truth. So let us always start by the truth, and the truth will set people free and will make them committed in the task they have been given. God's direction and vision are sought by the leader and the people. If you look at Nehemiah, there are a number of lessons you are supposed to run when you undertake your assignment in the church and everyday life. Nehemiah was always asking God to provide a vision for him. What does that one mean? He himself, Jeremiah, understood that the true vision must come from God, not from our own initiative or from one of our thinking. And I've gone to a number of churches, and I've seen things happen that you're telling the faithfuls now, I'm selling the keys for cars. Come and buy a key and you acquire your own car. But you, as a leader, when you want your car, you want the same faithful to fundraise for you. You really understand the true vision, which comes from God. It must be God-inspired and God-revealed vision. So even when you are doing some of those projects, and I heard Pastor Buri yesterday share something, that they had a controversial issue, which they had, and there were a number of ministers, and they decided, instead of wasting time, why don't we first seek God vision and come together to agree on issue? And they said they fasted for a number of days, and when they came together, God had already inspired each one of them. God had already revealed a vision for each one of them. And when they came, actually the issue which had taken time just took a few minutes. What does it mean? It must be God-inspired, God-revealed, and those want to succeed. Only such vision is worthy of leadership. The vision must be what God has put in your heart, not what you want to pursue, but what God has put in your heart. That one, the vision emerged in the midst of, like now we look at Jeremiah and Nehemiah, his vision emerged in the midst of a devastating situation. And it would have been very difficult for him to achieve, and it would have fallen to despair. But because this vision came from God, it was revealed from God, and he was seeking God. Always seek God in vision, even in difficult times. Sometimes you're running those projects, sometimes you're doing things in the church, you're given assignment, and sometimes it becomes very difficult. Like the vision of Nehemiah during that bad times. But the solution is God leader always seek God vision, even in difficult times, and God gives him the glory and the grace to overcome. Prayers is essential to know God's will. And as a good leader, anytime you are carrying the assignment of God, please be in constant prayer with God so that God can guide you on what is expected. Prayer is the fundamental act for people of God. God leaders and God people must be in the right place to hear God's voice. That means when there's a controversy, let us be ready to hear from God as the direction from us. God can speak to us anytime, but if we are not turning our heart towards God to seek God's guidance, it becomes very difficult for God's vision to reach our hearts and complete our assignment. So let us turn to God. Let our hands turn to God. Even during good times and difficult times, let us listen. Like the prophet Habakkuk climbed into the tower, believing that God had a vision for him and his people. And surely God had. And Habakkuk was willing to wait for the vision, but he knew that he needed to put himself in position to receive it. How many a times do we dump chest of our achievement, forgetting that it's God who has given us those achievements, and acknowledging and seeking further guidance from him so that we can achieve more noble assignment. God vision is very simple. God vision tends to be very simple. People build complicated system, but God is often extremely very simple. For Nehemiah and his people, the vision was captured in 3 words: rebuild the wall. Look at the instructions of the vision of God. Very simple. Let us not complicate and come up with all those things to confuse the faithful as leaders. Look at the vision of God to Nehemiah during those devastating time and the wanting time. The words were very simple, 3 of them: rebuild the wall. There are many needs, hopes, and dreams of the people, but God's vision for the immediate future was captured in the rebuilding the wall. Without this vision, other needs could not be met. That means our daily needs and other things we need to arrive will only be accomplished when we follow the God's vision. The other thing, God's leader builds a team. And when you're building a team, this one could be seen in Nehemiah. Despite resistance, despite the trying time, Nehemiah gained the trust of the people. This permitted him to build a team that could make the vision happen. People shared responsibility to accomplish the goal. No one person, not even Nehemiah, could accomplish this vision alone. And therefore, as a leader, you should be able to build a team. Remember, one of the key principles of Christianity is love for each other. And therefore, love for each other should bring trust. And the trust should come up with a team. So that together as a team, we can be able to achieve. You may find there are so many things you may not be able to achieve alone, but when you bring the input of the rest of the team, brothers and sisters, it can easily be achieved. Nehemiah began with very few people. Then he expanded the team to include virtually everyone. The people committed themselves for the common goal. So you read at Nehemiah 2 and verse 18, that one is there. However, even when you're carrying this assignment, people see things from different perspectives. There will be always some internal disputes. Someone said, everything looks like failure in the mid-room. Remember Sanbaraki and the others. But Nehemiah was able to find ways to alleviate this concern without losing the vision. And therefore, anytime a dispute or issues arises internally within the church, it is not the issue for going to the court. Those are brothers and sisters. And as a good leader, you have to find ways to alleviate their concern without losing the vision of the church. So we have seen in some cases, people have even turned some churches to a battleground. That is very, very serious in our day-to-day. God leader keep the real purpose for the people. That means they do not divert in their personal agenda. In the assignment they are doing is that they keep their real purpose for the people. It is easy for people to forget the purpose behind the vision, even when they work to fulfill it. The vision was to build the wall, but the wall was not the important part of the vision. The wall was a means to a larger purpose. And what was the larger purpose? What Nehemiah and his people are really about was reclaiming their identity as people of faith. And that is really very interesting. People saw maybe thought they were building the wall, but behind the wall, there was a big vision that was claiming their identity as people of faith. What was at stake was not just about the wall, but indeed it was their faith. Remember, they were in foreign land and they could have ended up worshiping idols. If you read to Nehemiah chapter 8, 12 and 27, Nehemiah had to make sure the people were reminded of their ancient faith, they were reminded of their God, and they were reminded who they were supposed to serve. Because their task was tied to the large purpose, and they put their heart into their work, and were able to complete the task within 52 days. What amazing feat was this? And therefore, the moment a leader keeps the real purpose, they will be able to achieve a lot. And we'll be able to achieve with less effort, reminding people who they are and what is their duty and expected. So what are some of the leadership traits can we see in Nehemiah, and which the current Christian leader should also have? One, this man was a humble man. As a leader, it is not a position of authority or a position of privilege. It is a position of responsibility. Look at this. Nehemiah, from the reading of the Bible, he was a highly ranked man in the kingdom. In fact, he was the cupbearer of the king. Yet he understood his stewardship role, and he said that he arrived in Jerusalem when they were going to build the wall. He arrived in Jerusalem only with an animal he was riding, when he could have asked the king for many people, more men to help him and even escort him back. But he came around riding on an animal, showing the aspect of simplicity and humbleness in the role he's going to take. So as Christian leaders, what are we supposed to do? Humble ourselves. Let us not uplift ourselves. The other thing is compassionate. When he learned of the suffering of the people, he sat down and cried, and then mourned for days, fasting and praying for his Jewish brothers and sisters in Jerusalem. So we should have the compassionate for our congregation, whatever they are going to. We should pray, intercede for them, and mourn with those who are mourning, so that we can be able to be associated with them. The other thing is visionary. A good leader should have a vision. He immediately captured the hearts of the people to help him rebuild the wall. Why? Because he had a very clear vision. He was able to communicate effectively, and the people were able to buy it. He actually was said to be a master of motivating. He motivated his people to show up and be able to rally the people to work together. Was an amazing feat. Many a times you are given assignment in the church and you are told to come up with a group to run the assignment. And many a times you find that we are not able to do the same. So strength and courage. You realize that amid this, when he was constructing the wall, there were also some attacks from those people outside the city. And he was able to hold people together despite the confusions, despite the storms which happened in the church. Us as the leaders, we should be able to take control and be able to calm the storm. He spoke of the strength and determination and confidence, and even instructed those building the wall to have a spear in one hand and a tool on the other hand. What a courage and what a motivator was he. The other time he was organized, that he actually assembled the team, and that is what we are supposed to borrow from him. And he was able to finish the assignment within 52 days because he has the ability to organize and stay focused on the strategy at hand. And many a times as a leader, sometimes the aspect of organizations actually challenges. Aspect of integrity. When Nehemiah ran the way of some people were being cheated, sold into slavery by others in the city, he quickly brought right to it and put a solution and system in place. He would not stand the inequalities that had been going on for quite a while. So as leaders of the church and as a part of integrity, we are supposed to stand for those inequalities or those injustices which go and ensure we treat all the Christianities in fairness. In conclusion, the prophet Nehemiah provides a modern day leader a wonderful model of leadership. Upon learning of the distress of his people, Nehemiah receives permission from the king he was serving to go and help his people. And therefore, when you say you are so busy, you cannot get an opportunity to work with others for the assignment of the church. Look at Nehemiah, who was working for the king. He requested for permission because he saw his people are in distress, and received the permission to go, leave all the privileges, and go to serve his people. And therefore, despite obstacles and opposition, he discerns a challenging vision and leads people in accomplishing it. So despite all those resistance, despite all what was going, he was able to accomplish it. Francis, I know my time is gone, but please add me 10 minutes and finish what I'm doing. Yes, application of the stewardship role in Christian leadership. That cannot live with this one without application. One, leadership is not ownership. Ladies and gentlemen, leadership is not a position of authority or a position of a privilege, but leadership is stewardship. Leaders must care for and develop what God has entrusted on them. Christian leaders are stewards appointed by God to manage his people, tasks and resources with integrity and faithfulness. So the word integrity and faithfulness is carrying, and we are saying that leaders serve by utilizing their gifts, they utilize their talents and authority to build up others and advance the God's purpose for the whole accomplishment of the mission of what we are sent to do. The other thing, Nehemiah teaches that faithful steward or a good leader is a prayerful leader, seeking God's guidance in managing the assignment. A steward must have a very clear vision. He should be able to motivate others towards a common godly goal, and diligence, which involves hard work, personal involvement, and leading by example rather than just mere delegation. Effective leadership includes adaptability to challenges, that we shall not assume that even if we are running our Christian ministry, we are brothers, we are born again, we shall never have challenges. Effective leadership includes adaptability to challenges and protection of resources and people, which you have seen in the story of Nehemiah. Integrity and justice, repeated again, for steward, ensuring fairness and care within the community and congregation. And also a good steward, this aspect of being perseverance. Perseverance in stewardship leads to accomplishing God's purpose even amid opposition. And those opposition will face them. And therefore, when you persevere and then be ready, you'll be able to accomplish God's vision. In conclusion, the story of Nehemiah provides a strong biblical ground for leaders to view their leadership role as a steward of God's assignment, working diligently and responsibility for his glory or for the glory of God. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would say we are stewards. We are given assignment to take care of. We shall face resistance, but we should now look upon God to guide us. And let us focus, identify with your people, work with the people, do not only delegate, be part and parcel of those people, work with them, have a very clear vision, and commit yourself. And even during challenges, God will always be able to provide. Let us not complicate the work of God. God's vision is very clear. Either that one assignment given to Jeremiah, or the three was rebuild the wall. So let us stipulate the vision of God. Let us not bring other issues to confuse the congregation. Let us work as per the vision of God, and we shall be able to achieve a lot in the kingdom within the stipulated time. And therefore, as I summarize my teaching, I want to say this, that ladies and gentlemen, we are called for a great mission by our God who called us. And it is our duty, our responsibility, one, to manage time. And we have said time is sacred and entrusted to us by God, and we shall account for it, and should be used for the glory of God. Time belongs to God and should be used for the glory of God. The other thing is the resources you are given in terms of the talents and gifts which you have been entrusted with. It is your duty to multiply them. And when you're entrusted with few, you can also be entrusted with more. And a good example, a person entrusted with 5 minas was entrusted in 10 cities. How many? If today the gift and the resources you are given, if God comes today, how many have you multiplied and how many will be entrusted? So with a very small assignment, then you can be able to be given bigger and bigger responsibility. And finally, assignment and vision. God gives you an assignment, and you have to have a very clear vision. And God's work, like people work as a team. And always know in any assignment you're going to work, there will always be some resistance. Know how to address the concern without losing your focus and losing your vision. And that way, we are able to accomplish the noble goal of God's as you await for reward. And Paul said, as much as I'm preaching and teaching, I'm also pushing very hard to ensure that I accomplish and be able to achieve what we call the rewards in heaven.